Haha! So our parts came in. So there's the part number. And you can see you get 2 float needles. But one has the rubber tip. And of course one is the steel, the all aluminum one, which has the seat. So you get both styles in here. So I'll be saving that other one for another job in the future. So the clip, you just push that baby in place like that. Go ahead and get rid of this old float needle. And do pay attention to which way this clip is. Put this new one on the same way. And hopefully this was the right way. We'll see when we put it back together. All right. You can see this float has a little bit of damage. That can happen if water gets into the carburetor and then freezes. It crunches it. Whoops. But we shook it. There was no liquid in there, no gas in there, so it still floats. I'm sure it's fine. Put this guy back on. So we were pretty lucky. This carburetor was nice and clean on the inside. So much so I felt like I didn't have to remove this one brass piece that's down in here. I think that's what they call the nozzle piece. I did remove this piece, which is the piece that goes down on top of that. And if you look, you can see up through there, so I'm sure that's fine, because as I say, the carburetor wasn't that dirty to begin with. So Briggs and Stratton, with these needle seats, you can see they're pretty much the same color, at least at one time they were the same color. But I've seen, what, brown, red, and this kind of green-blue color from Briggs and Stratton. And they're all unique, so you have to make sure you get the right one. And as always, if you look at the seat, one side has grooves like that, and the other side doesn't. So the side that has grooves is the side you press down in. So the grooves go down. It's always a good idea to clean out this area before you press that seat into place. I'll spray some lubricant in there too to help this little rubber piece get down in there. And what you use is the right size punch, or this is a Tecumseh tool, but I think it might work for this. Sometimes these Briggs seats get stuck on this Tecumseh tool, but I think I can do it here. Yeah, because this one's kind of loose on here. So remember, the grooves go first. Groove side down, baby. And you just press it in. And you don't have to push it that hard down in there to seat it. Just want to make sure that tool didn't pull it back out here. Nope, it's in place. All right. One thing I did want to show you is the main jet here, the adjustable main jet. If we take this screw out, you're going to have an O-ring down in here and a little brass washer. Let's see. Don't lose that little brass washer. And that's an O-ring there. You can get a rebuild kit, but I think we're good. I'm just going to use this one for now. And I'm sure it's sealed. I'm sure it's going to be just fine. If not, I'll order the rebuild kit. So yeah, here's your main jet, which is what holds the float bowl on. And this is your pilot jet adjustment screw, which we took out of, what was it, here. And so one thing we need to do is there's a fine little brass jet down in there, and we're going to have to take a piece of wire like this and poke that down through it, because it's a very small passageway that we need to make sure is cleared out. And this is what adjusts the amount of fuel and air that goes through that jet. So alright, so I'm poking this piece of wire all the way down through, so I know that little passageway is clear. Never hurts to use a little bit of carburetor cleaner down through here. So just make sure the screw is nice and clean. And I believe, well, we'll find out what the preliminary setting is on that. All right, so then this piece, we want to make sure it's got little holes all up and down this little tube. It's like threading a needle. There we go. And then all the way up through, we want to make sure is clear. So get a long strand here. Poke it all the way up. And if you look in the little hole up here, you can see your wire poking through, so you know it's all the way clear. Or you can put a little bit of carburetor cleaner up in here and watch it shoot out. Yep, see that? So we got to put him back down in there. I would have liked to have been able to get this brass piece out, but it was just in there way too tight, and I'm not even sure if that part was available. And I could see that it was clear for the most part, and this carburetor wasn't dirty, so I'm pretty sure everything was clear. All the way in. Not real tight, but tight enough. There we go. I'm going to reuse this float bowl gasket. It's a fiber gasket, and I think it's I think it'll seal again, because I want to save this one. It was like $8 or something for my next job. All right, one last little cleaning here. And let's put this, and I'm not sure if it really matters which way you put the clip on your needle valve here on your float. Put him back into place here.
Oh yeah.
Get our float hinge pin back into place. Oops.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Just like that. And now with most of these old carburetor float setups, you want to make the float level all the way around, if you know what I mean. So you want to hold it horizontal and look all the way around and make sure the float is level all the way around. If it's not, then you just bend the little tab here on the needle valve, and that way the float sits up a little higher or a little bit lower, whatever you need. But I'm looking here, and this thing looks pretty even all the way around to me, so we're going to go with that. And then one last cleaning of the inside of the float bowl here. You see I painted everything. Looks all snazzy. Normally when I'm working on stuff, I just leave it dirty as heck. Put it back together and not really give a crap. But this one I figured we'd kind of restore and make it look nice. Cheapest way possible. Alright, so we'll put this float bowl back on. Make sure nothing's in there. Nice and clean. Don't forget your washer. And this. And once you tighten this up, you'll do the same thing as you did with this jet. You will tighten it in all the way until it stops. Not any tighter, just until it stops, and then you back it out. I think it's a turn and a half on this one and 1 turn on this one. Let me go check. Oops. Almost forgot this little brass washer on my main jet here. There we go. I should probably clean off this needle a little bit. Oops. All right, let's tighten this baby down. Make sure this isn't tightened. When you tighten this down, you could break something. All right, now this, as I was saying, you screw it in just until it stops, and then you back it out half, 1, 1.5. We still have our rubber gasket there for the air filter, and the gasket for the intake manifold actually stayed in place. Can condition it a little bit here, and I'm sure it's going to work just fine using the old one. I know you guys hate it when I do that, but It'll work fine, trust me. So if you remember, the spring here was broken. So all I'm going to do is get some pliers and twist another loop into that thing. Looks like that side's okay. And if I remember right, the broken side was the side that went to the carburetor. Alright, watch this. Zoink. There, we got a hook now. I'll make it look a little nicer than that. Perfect. So, let's see. Where did this stinker go? So that's the choke. This was the throttle. So it looks like the linkage and the spring hook into the same hole on this one. So I have the spring and the linkage through the throttle there. And so here's the choke linkage, and it just goes in like that. Alright, I'm excited to get this thing back together, boys and girls. Woo! Check it out. Got a new muffler for it, and it threads right in. I do need to get the lock nut for it still. They called it a low tone muffler, so we'll see about that. I'm just going to leave this off for now. But more importantly, we've got to have the carburetor ready to go back on. So I can see up in there where I need to connect the throttle linkage off the carburetor. And then the choke linkage just slides through a slot back here, which is easy enough. So let's see if we can do this. Remember, we have these pain in the butt slot head screws that mount up. Pain in the butt. Okay. So also on this one we hook up the spring and the linkage through the same hole up in here. I've found when it's a tight squeeze like this to hook up the spring first. It's usually the easiest way to go. Oh, wait a second, man. That spring's broken on that side too. I'm going to have to review the tape. I think this is the end that attaches to the carburetor now that I look at it.
Review the tape.
So I'm going to try to hook up the spring first. Actually, I think I'm going to disconnect it from the carburetor here. And I double checked. This long part goes towards the carburetor, so we're good there. So let's go ahead and hook up the spring. I think this is the easiest way to do this. Hook up the spring first, and then put the linkage through. Alright, so we're in place there. And on this end, we'll do the same thing. We'll put the spring in first. Alright, make sure nothing's bound up here. And the choke goes in its little slot. It's kind of hard to hold everything in place. go. We hook up the breather tube. Yeah. Just make sure the linkage doesn't get, or the spring doesn't get all kinked up when you're trying to put this thing on. Everything's looking good. Alright, we'll want to crank these down as hard as we can with the screwdriver here. You can also use a box end wrench to get at it a little bit. So these wires over here, this is our kill switch coming off the magneto or the coil. So the coil will fire unless this is grounded somewhere. So, and this here is the charging circuit off of the stator, the alternator. So this goes to nowhere at this point. This would go to your battery, but it's okay just to leave it exposed for now. And once we start this engine or need to kill the engine, we just ground this out to one of the bolts, and that'll kill it. Almost forgot that bolt. The 5/16 screwdriver wrench like this is a good wrench to use on these small bolts. You can't generate enough power to break anything, usually. So I think I'll put this muffler on temporarily, and if we hook fuel up to here, I think we can test this engine out. So as you can see here, I put on a fuel line as well as a fuel filter. There wasn't much room, but I was able to fit one up in there. So we can gas this thing up. Oh boy, that was a wild ride. It seems to be running pretty good. We just need to dial in this carburetor. quite right on the mixture yet. There we go. There we go. I pretty much have it dialed in. That was a rough ride. Well, there she is, boys. Reused head gasket and all. Running pretty sweet. I'll put that air filter back on. Fine tune the carb. We'll be ready to roll. Well, there we are, folks, in all her glory. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, considering I thought it was going to be a complete failure. But yeah, I cranked those head bolts down, didn't I, Bun? So I cranked down those head bolts, and everything seems to be holding up. No gas leaks. Runs great. For sale.